No, not you. Sorry about that. Thank you for staying with us. We'll be looking now at regulating the social media. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, stated in the course of the week that there was a need for the country to regulate the social media. Well, there had been talk in this direction, and 2-3 weeks ago, when a particular microblogging entity was banned, people began to read meanings and to, well, say that this was the direction government was going to. So when the minister said this in the course of this week, people said, aha, we said so, we said so. So what will be the import of regulating social media in this country? We have two gentlemen who are going to help us analyze this. We have the CEO of Wave 5 Wireless, Mr. Ayowande Adalimo. Good morning.
It's a pleasure being here.
Good morning. We also have a brand communications expert, Mr. Adeola Kayode. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for coming, both of you.
It's a pleasure to be here, ma'am.
Thank you. Let me begin with you, sir. What would be the import of regulating social media the way that our government is looking at it right now?
I think I like the way you put that question. The way our government is looking at it right now. Because that exactly embodies the entire issue around regulating social media. So there are two constructs. There's a construct of control, which goes with the brick and mortar system of doing things. Then there's the other construct of a decentralized system and the sharing economy. Now, anyone within the construct of the brick and mortar control system cannot understand the decentralized sharing economy. So what do I mean? We hear buzzwords like artificial intelligence, we hear buzzwords like machine learning, blockchain, decentralized finance, and all of those things. They are constructs of the sharing economy. The ride hailing that we take. All these constructs are a completely different construct from the control brick and mortar system. So you have a bank, you must go to work because you must be controlled. That has changed with the fintech industry. You don't have to be in a bank.
And the pandemic also emphasized that.
So when you want to regulate social media, whoever says that is coming from the control construct. That's what they understand. And that's why I like that question, because it's a question of who is thinking about this and why. It's a function of the mindset. And let me use the word that I feel a bit of pity for those who are in governance and who do not understand the other side of the chasm, because it's a chasm. If anyone in government understands the decentralized nature of things and the sharing economy, they would not seek to regulate, they will seek to understand. So one of the microblogging sites deleted the president's tweet. Okay, that's bad enough. And the microblogging site did not delete the tweet of someone else that they felt was. So if I was an advisor to the president, the next move is not to suspend that microblogging site. The next move is to, I have 3.5 million Nigerians on that. That's an army of 3.5 million people. So it's a social construct. It's a thing of planting ideas in their mind. Because people reported that tweet. And some influencers started the campaign of reporting the tweet to the president, and their followers followed in tweeting, right? So what is the National Orientation Agency doing with that kind of platform? Where you have 3.5 million Nigerians. Let's not forget that 15.1 million Nigerians voted for the president. That means that about 1/5 of that number are on Twitter. If I can convince 10% of them to begin to think, oh, that statement was taken out of context. This is exactly what we mean, and this is what we're going to do. What will happen is that 10% of them will say, okay, the president has said something. Oh, you guys are wrong. It begins, and because it goes viral, it begins to create a counter-argument. Then you find one or two influencers who just puts in the word and says, oh, I think we should listen to the president now. It kills whatever antagonism has come up initially. So instead of regulation, you must understand that you're in a sharing economy now. Unfortunately, those who do regulations for us are in the control economy. that has been there from the 19th century, the 20th century. They don't understand the industrial revolution that is happening. And someone said on the platform the other day that there are two Nigerias. There's Niger and there's Nigeria. And that is very true.
Which one is Niger?
So Nigeria consists of entrepreneurs, ideas, startups, people building things and moving with this decentralized economy.
That's Niger.
That's Nigeria.
Okay.
Nigeria sits in the control, don't talk, don't sit, don't stand sort of things.
We clearly need a new constitution to accommodate these two people. But let me ask you, do you see a generational clash here?
Clearly, that is what is happening. So if you look all across the world, everyone is looking to Nigeria. Great potential. Yeah. This is a Ferrari, but you're parking it in a garage. You know, where you have an immense amount of youths that represents, I think about 60% of the population is below 30 years old. That's a huge army. That's a huge potential. And you know, there's this study that was done, and they talked about Afro-optimism, that there's a huge optimism rising in Africa. But then that optimism, they could not link it to the infrastructure because our infrastructure is poor. They could not link it to governance because that is poor as well. What they linked it to was the power of the youth linked to technology. That the confluence of mobile, social and digital technologies is changing things. So the typical problems, you know, that one generation has seen and said, oh, these are problems, banking, you have to get a tally number. Some are turning it into possibilities, you know, and that's because of these tools. However, you know, the Nigeria I mentioned about, the challenge is that the control of the system of how things run is actually with one generation, but the potential and the future is with another generation.
Is that also saying? Is that also saying that? Let me ask you, Mr. Andy, I don't know. Is that also saying that this fact is lost on the Nigerians? Is that? Are you by any chance saying that maybe the authorities are not aware of this, you know, fact that Mr. Kade has spoken about, consequently unable to take advantage of it or maximize it?
So there's a lot of intelligence that comes to play in understanding that certain constructs are beyond you and you need help. Sadly, we see less and less of that intelligence in governance, less and less of that intelligence in public service.
That's not to say that there aren't young people in government.
Yes, so the challenge we have is that there has not been a deliberateness to public innovation over the years. Our civil service is over-bloated. I disagree completely. Our civil service is not innovative. And if you look at certain states that are making some strides, not appreciable strides, I will love it, you will realize that the governors or the leaders in those states, Lagos as an example, made deliberate efforts to bring some sort of innovation to the civil service and turn it into an engine as against people just sitting at work and passing files around. So they know what it is, but it's a function of my pocket versus my development. How many governors will sit? How many SSAs have the power to tell the governor, Mr. Governor, this is not right? I'll give you a typical example. Some time ago, there was this rumor flying around that the Lagos State government wanted to start collecting taxes on content created in Lagos State. And quite a number of us in the industry were like, okay, what's going on? And I spoke to quite a number of my friends, and they said, one day, calm down, let's see if this is true. And then one of our entrepreneurs, a notable entrepreneur in the content industry, showcased a letter from that agency. And I tweeted at the governor, and I said, I made a point. So if this content that says that they will shut down the company happens, so you move your task force, they control economy, you move your task force, you shut down the office, you seal it. This man does not need an office to create content.
Thank you.
So what will happen? The next day, the executive secretary was sacked. So they're listening. They're seeing. But how many of them will take that intelligent move to say, we need to move this country forward? Very few of them will do that. And that's a challenge we have.
Yeah, Dale. I am sure that government is not unaware of the number of young people.
A significant number.
You said 60 million. 60 million
60%.
is more than enough to win an election.
It's enough. It's enough.
So I am sure that government is aware of that. And government intends to use that in the next election, if it didn't in the last, after seeing what happened with NSAS and how the whole nation was mobilized. Nobody traveled from point A to point B to go mobilize anybody. Everything was done on the devices. So I am sure they are now aware that elections can be won and lost by this. So I am sure also that they are preparing to use that in the next election. What do you think?
So for me, I think they are aware. But the real question as a student and master in the School of Strategy is that every time they do this, you ask, so what is the nature of the problem we are trying to solve? Because if we are thinking short term, then we are trying to regulate. Because what happens to all of us is that what are we trying to achieve in the long term? You know, in trying to create that system, what are we trying to achieve? If we don't think about the long-term things, then we have a lot of tactics, stop this, remove this, without a coordination of those individual actions towards a common policy. So what are we actually trying to achieve with communications in Nigeria? With the youths, what future or what vision do we have that all our coordination or coordinated action is to empower them and guide them like a laser beam to achieve what this government wants to do? We want to empower and lift people out of poverty. What exactly are the policies? If we keep quiet and the only time we are hearing things are when we try to limit extent, then we are actually making a terrible use of the weapon of the system we have in place. So they are aware. So I think number one is first of all understanding the nature of the problem they are trying to solve. Number two is actually to define where they're actually taking everybody to. Because what is happening to a large extent in the sharing economy is that we look at problems and we ask ourselves, how can I solve this problem? So when I solve that problem, and then you now come back with a regulation on how I should solve the problem. No, you should have guided how I should have solved this problem in the first instance. So if we begin to look at that this is where the government is saying it wants to reach, that in the next 3 years, this is where who we want to become. For the youth, this is what it translates to. For us as a government, this is how we are going to be guiding. And government is doing that every day. We don't need so much money to be able to do everything we want to do. We need to just implement the things that are important.
Do you even see, because perhaps the challenge here has been that of engagement. Because what you are talking about here now would be along the line of engaging this population that you're talking about. So in terms of engaging the young people, Mr. Dalemo, how do you think, how should we not be doing it, and what would you recommend?
So we should not be doing it the way we're doing it now. And I agree with Coyote. There needs to be a strategy behind engagement. You can't just say, I want to engage the youth, call a town hall meeting, fill it with youth, and then talk to them. There must be a strategy. And like you said, what is the goal of engaging the youth? What am I going to achieve? Is the goal, I always ask the question when I meet people in governance, and I ask them, what platform do you want to present Nigeria as? The United States is known as the military platform of the world. Mexico says they want to become the logistics platform of the world. Brazil is saying they want to become the health platform of the world. The United Arab Emirates is saying we are the tourism capital of the world. If we understand the platform that Nigeria wants to become, then you can begin to engage the youth based on the strategies of this platform.
So perhaps the first thing you're talking about is we need to have a vision.
We need to have a vision.
Oh dear. We'll be back. So we're back. Why? So the number one challenge is vision.
The vision, yes.
So in terms of potential, the topic we're talking about is regulating social media.
Yes.
Now, in terms of casting a vision and executing or working towards that vision, in the light of this conundrum of regulating the social media, what's our shortcoming and what should we be doing?
I think our number one shortcoming is seeing social media as a threat. That's the number one shortcoming.
But do you agree also that the challenge of fake news, one of the things that the federal government is talking about, for which reason the social media there is being proposed a regulation around, is a problem? Fake news, hate speeches and all those things?
I agree that it's a problem. But that's why we have an agency called the National Orientation Agency. What is their role? Why do we have people who are paying every single month and we're talking about... It worries me a lot when we throw these defensive things at solving problem. Close the border because of insecurity. So what is the role of people who are in manage security? What is the role of the customs? Why shut the border? So what we see is that our inefficiency is modeled up, thrown into the dustbin, and then we come up with the Voltron to say, is that inefficiency is because of this thing. Meanwhile, you're not addressing the inefficiency. It's a lazy approach to solving systemic problems. So if there's fake news, we have broadcasters in this country who are licensed. We have a national orientation agency. We have newspaper. We have journalists in this country who are recognized. Then there's social media. That is where we say there's a purview of fake news. So the National Orientation Agency's job is to ensure that Nigerians are oriented to identify fake news. Because, see, shut down every single social media, from the microblogging sites to the instant messaging sites today. Fake news will continue to propagate itself. It will continue to be in small group discussions in streets, in villages. People will continue to say things that are not true. Who counters that narrative? And who allows that narrative to run for such a long time that it now becomes the truth? Inverted comma, open and close. Do we have a minister of culture in this country? Because this is a culture.
Well, we have him. We have a minister of information and culture.
Oh, we do. Okay. So the role of the Minister for Information and Culture is to understand what is the culture of our young Nigerians. And you will understand this problem where someone wears a dreadlock, right? I am 44. I was raised to think that dreadlocks are things that are anatomic to normal. But now, I work with people who have dreadlocks in my office. It is normal. But a lot of my colleagues will come and say, why do you have a dreadlock? And I have to educate them. Now, if I have to do that in my own small space, what is the National Orientation Agency under the Ministry of Information and Culture doing? Culture is not just having Eyo and Egungun masquerades dancing at every celebration or festival. It is understanding the evolving culture of our different tribes and how we can interact.
Okay. So, Mr. Kade, you began by saying we have a challenge of generational clash. How do we build this? A lot of it is going to be achieved through communication. And it would seem like we haven't even started to communicate. We have only been talking. And we both agree that there are two different things. So how should these two generations communicate? Let me be clear. Communication means shared meaning. I understand what you are saying the way you intend for me to understand it. So how should these two generations be talking?
I think I first will start by saying that the biggest counter or the fastest way to actually deal with fake news is actually it's actually facts. It's actually to lead with facts. It's actually to set an agenda. Because in the absence of a clear agenda, focus on a direction, then you leave side conversations to gain a lot of traction. So if I set the agenda, and I work with a lot of brands who essentially are having to engage this same target audience all across the time. They say what they mean what they say. When they are aggrieved, they will say it. And what brands have then begun to do is to listen. Listen, engage. You will learn a lot more by listening to this and then build traction with that. So I first would say lead with an agenda. What is the agenda? And then how can we drive this through participation? These people want to talk. They want to engage. They want to be part of the process. can you own the process and lead the charge? You know, they actually even don't, and if you realize it's not, they really want to, they just want to live a better life. They want a fighting chance at succeeding. You know, so largely, when we are starting this lead with agenda, lead with facts, set an agenda, and find the individual clusters. And you find out that in every industry, there's another industry rising up that is powered and driven by technology with little participation, and less regulation. They're looking at the existing laws that stifled individual industry, and we find it everywhere in technology, in healthcare. They're looking at the existing laws. We cannot solve the same problem. You want to solve a problem at the same level it was created. These guys are coming up with different approaches to look at this thing. Can we listen to them and then let them drive the process? You own the terrain. It's almost as if we create a grass and then come and farm within those spaces. In that kind of terrain, we will become a lot more powerful. As a matter of fact, you, who is the government, now own the agenda. You set the agenda, but then you give them the chance and the room to thrive on it. So that's the way I look at it. There's much more in terms of participation.
How long is this going to take?
No. It's not. It's actually very short. It's just a shift in mindset.
Whose mindset?
Both from the youths who essentially are
Nigeria's
disconnect.
mindset.
No, from both sides. No, from both sides. From both sides. For both the Nigerian in quotes who age-long challenges and then they've become a bit comfortable. You know, these are the problems we can solve. These are the ones we cannot solve. They need to step back a bit and listen. And then the individuals. You know, there's a reason why they say that you should yoke a young cow with an older cow. You leverage the experience of the older cow and the energy of the younger cow. And if you go into those who are into farming will explain that. So that's the kind of process we are looking at.
Getting this old cow and the young cow in the same room in Nigeria today, you and I know how that conversation is even going to begin in the first place. Because I mean, let's decrypt it. You know, Mr. Adelema said the other time. Let's decrypt it down to to brass tacks. Even in communities at the lower level and the communities, getting an older person and a younger person to sit in the same room and see the same thing the same way, now plenty work. So how do we? That's why I'm talking about the communication bit of the whole conversation.
First of all, Ayo, the young man cannot even speak in front of elders. Our cultural prevents him from doing that.
Exactly.
He will only speak when he is asked to speak.
Consequent upon which Mr. Dalima was talking about. So I want him to try. You are a brand communication person.
Yes.
So the brand
Nigeria.
Okay, I don't know. I'm afraid to say brand Nigeria because of what he said about Nigeria the other time. So, but the brand Nigeria entity, where both the Nigerian and the Niger people are, what kind of communication should the actors be having? How should who communicate with who in a way that they can both come to an agreement? You said it's short term. I want to hear how.
So look at it this way. First, there has to be a change of thinking from both sides, which I've explained in a bit. And then what is the agenda that the brand or the people who own the control system want to achieve?
With Nigeria.
With Nigeria has. And then we will come and then create a participation platform where you will hear the kind of opportunities and the kind of approaches that these young people have developed. Because the real challenge we have is that the people who own the control system are afraid of irrelevance. You know, so if you are thinking that in the new system you become irrelevant, then you stay within the space where you know you are powerful and remain relevant without. But you see, whether we like it or not, times are changing. The entire world is already thinking, oh, okay, please, when Nigeria is ready, they join us. So everybody is moving on. Okay. So for relevance for these individuals as well, you need to, and the young guys need to show how they still remain relevant in the future that Nigeria is going to, and leverage their experience. Because young people as well don't have that way long experience, they probably tell you. So we need to find that balance in experience and then the strength and opportunities they have so that we can create a system. Because ultimately, the Nigeria that is powerful, vibrant, will still have to depend on a Nigerian passport, approval, and regulations to thrive.
Would it have any impact, for instance, if Nigeria said, okay, Niger, you come and sit down and tell us what you think about this. Then they can take whatever they want from Niger and use, and whatever they don't want, they let go.
We've been doing that. We've been having talk shops. We've been having conferences, participation, submit bills. But we have enough policy and bills in the nation now that can take us to where we want to go. What we want to see is action, consistent small actions that is showing where we are going to. Remember, I recall that said that every time all of these actions happen, you ask yourself, what is the nature of the problem they are trying to solve? Because if you see, and in countries that want to go, you look at all actions and you see a thin line that is going through, and that thin line is actually strategy. Where do they want? What do you want to achieve? You know, because by praising those systems, okay, you want to become the tourism capital of the world. Everything you will be doing will show that you are going there. If you are doing everything that is discoordinated, then we are not going anywhere.
What do you think we want to achieve by regulating social media?
As you had mentioned, to be honest, the perception, and you know, based on what had happened initially with the president, the deletion of the tweet and all that, it almost as if he had already created a foundation of distrust that you need to now ask yourself. Without people willing to ask yourself, so what are you trying to achieve with this?
So it's an open-ended question.
It's an open-ended question
now,
whether distrust is in place.
Mr. Adalimo, if we are going to take this further, what should we prioritize? You have talked about culture, and I think you have even expanded the dictionary meaning and research meaning of culture now. So what else are we supposed to do? Ultimately, the whole entity belongs to all, whether they are Niger or Nigerian. So what should those who are not within the control system be doing to help or compel those within the control system to do the needful?
So I'll say two things. What I tell young entrepreneurs, because I also train entrepreneurs, is that sometimes you need to become a politician and use propaganda as a tool. So if you're building a system, and if you look at Paystack and Flutterwave and the rest of them, in their speak, they're constantly saying, thank God for the CBN for helping us do this. You cannot say, I did this on my own, I don't need anybody. Go to, excuse my language, go to hell, the government. When I build systems, I invite Nigeria and give them the honor for giving me the platform to build that system in the first place. It is an intrinsic part of our culture in Nigeria that you want that kind of honor from someone that is younger. You will support that young person. So I can walk into a governor's office, I can walk into a minister's office, I can call people in the NCC and say, I need this, and oh, that guy, don't know, he's humble, he's all right. I am not stupid. So Niger needs to learn that, right? Nigeria also needs to do certain things they have done well in silos that shows that there's a potential. And I'll give the second example is the Nigerian Super Eagles jersey. Who on earth will ever dream that the Super Eagles jersey will be on demand in the whole world? What did Amaju Pinnick, who is Nigeria, what did he do to get...
Are you sure he will call himself Nigeria or Nigeria?
So those silos of successes that we see, they need to begin to replicate that. They need to study it and say, what happened here? How did we resonate with all the youth globally? They need to continue to do that, not just in sports, they now need to do it in leverage in every sector. That is how both parties can come to the same table, and I agree.
Thank you very much. So, Nigeria.
Now I know we are different.
There has to be a convergence.
Oh, wait. There are some of us that are Nigeria.
There has to be a convergence.
Yes, we are the convergent Nigeria.
There he goes. Mr. Ayowande Adalimo, CEO with 5 Wireless, and Mr. Adeola Kayode, brand communications expert. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
To have this discussion with us this morning. Sunrise will be back in just a moment with the home stretch.